What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Our first question comes from Bayou Jesse, who asks if Sidious could have been behind the plot to get the child so he could have stable clones.
So I guess this would be from all the stuff in the Rise of Skywalker novelization, where we learned that his son was just a failed clone, and they were having trouble cloning Sidious. I think it's likely that cloning is involved with the child. I don't think it... please don't let it have anything to do with Sidious.
just please leave him out of this.
Let him be.
I would be shocked if they brought him into this series and it's like, oh, turns out this is all another one of Sidious's plans.
Yeah, this is all, kind of stemming from my own hopes that The Mandalorian largely stays its own story. And I like Gideon as a villain. Sure, he's part of the Empire, but I want him to have his own ambitions, his own goals. I've seen some people ask, could he be using the child to try to find Grand Admiral Thrawn? And I'm just, no. I want him to be his own person, doing his own thing, trying to carve out his own little area of the galaxy for him to control. That I like a lot more than I'm trying to bring Sidious back or someone else. He can be the big bad. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. No need to bring old Palpy into this again.
But I did want to mention, so Dr. Pershing has the cloning patch on in season 1. And also the new book, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but Pablo Hidalgo's fun facts book that came out, people have been talking about it all week. There is a mention of the Empire trying to clone specific species, and that could be nothing. It could be a little hint of what's to come.
Mr. J.D. Rice wants to know what we would choose as the title for the Cassian Andor series.
This is kind of becoming relevant because I saw this on the Bespin Bulletin on Instagram. It looks like the production dates have been announced or discovered for November 4th, and there's a working title attached to that. And it was just Star Wars Andor. And everyone's kind of eh. That was kind of my, yeah, makes sense. I'm hopeful that that's a working title. It wouldn't surprise me if that is the title.
Star Wars Andor?
Just instead of The Mandalorian, the title would just be Andor. That it could very well be just that's what we're using for now as we're in production. But, for the longest time, everyone was like, what's the name of the Solo movie? It's Solo. I don't know. There's so many books that are just Tarkin, Thrawn, Phasma. I think they're probably going to try to use some name recognition there.
Yeah. I'd be fine with Andor. Or even just Cassian. I feel I don't know which one of those I might like better.
I wouldn't mind them going with something a little the first thing that popped into my head was Star Wars Rebellion, but that's so close to Star Wars Rebels. So yeah. I don't think that's likely, but I wouldn't mind them coming up with a slightly more creative title than just Andor, because I want it to be more about the start of the rebellion, not just Cassian, although he will be the focus, I assume.
Yeah, it could be Star Wars Spy Time.
Okay, I think we found it.
Eli asks who we would write about if we could choose any character in a future from a certain point of view book.
So, any other movie, Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, any of the sequel trilogy. I assume even Solo and Rogue One can be thrown in there. Mm-hmm. I want to just go ahead and throw my hat into the ring for Max Rebo.
Yeah.
I want a Max Rebo story. I don't want to write it. I know.
I'm I don't trust myself writing any stories about any of my favorite characters, but
yeah, who would you want a from a certain point of view story from in any of the future movies?
Maybe Maz Kanata.
I think that's a good one.
And plus, she's so old, she could kind of fit into any of them.
That's a great
going
point.
forward.
That's a really good point. I'm always like a fan of introducing like a character that we now know, but didn't know when like The Empire Strikes Back came out, or when A New Hope was out. We'd never heard of Dr. Aphra, but they included a Dr. Aphra story in from a certain point of view. Yeah, if they were to, whenever we do The Phantom Menace, it would be very cool to have Maz Kanata pop up in some way. Maybe she has a holo conversation with Yoda, or like something fun like that.
I gotta know the story with her and Chewie.
And that's a good one too, because Chewie's been around for a long time. So yeah, maybe they're on the phone during Revenge of the Sith. She's just checking in during the Battle of Kashyyyk, like, "Are you okay?
Where's my boyfriend?"
Uh-huh.
Tyler Shepard wants to know if the Jedi still trained in lightsaber combat with the Sith supposedly extinct.
I guess we're gonna find out in the High Republic. I would assume so, but it is interesting, like, if there was a point to it, because it's not like you're gonna be fighting other people with lightsabers. The Sith are gone. What are you fighting for?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's more of an art form.
I agree.
Back then, like, they weren't training specifically like attack and defense combat, maybe, or maybe they were, but it was more celebrated as an art form, kind of like samurai sword techniques, things like that. I mean, that it's all fight worthy, but
Sure.
they're not doing it in the mindset of like, oh, I'm gonna go chop somebody's head off.
I have to go fight someone with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think we're going to see the Jedi use their lightsabers during the High Republic, but it'll probably be more against people with just blasters or other types of energy weapons.
Yeah.
And that's also true. Like, lightsabers aren't the only melee weapons a lightsaber can fight against. So I'm sure they would still need to have that combat, but like, I'm curious to see how just the Jedi are going to be, what kind of mindset they're going to be in with no Sith around. And supposedly the galaxy has been at peace for 800 years. So what have they been doing? Are they going to feel like up to the task when the Nihil show up? It's an interesting position to see them in.
Jordan Brown asks if we think a show like Star Trek Lower Decks could work in Star Wars.
So I have not seen Lower Decks yet. Surprise, surprise, we don't watch like all the Star Trek stuff. I'm not bashing Star Trek, because what I have seen I have enjoyed. But I don't really know everything about Lower Decks. I think it's like in universe, I think it is canon, but they're also, poking fun at it a little bit. I don't think anything specifically like that would work in Star Wars, only because I don't think the fans would accept it.
Yeah.
I think the closest thing we're going to get to it is like the Lego universe, where it's kind of sort of in this gray area, but it's just like a sillier interpretation of canon events.
Kind of like the Freemaker Adventures.
Right. Like, I think that in broad strokes, because the Freemaker Adventures has been referenced in actual canon stuff, like Squadrons, multiple times references the Freemaker Adventures. So I would assume that the broad strokes of that show are canon. The exact way that it all goes down, because it's a very silly show, probably not. And it's the same thing with like the Lego Force Awakens and the upcoming Lego Skywalker Saga game. It's going to be a silly retelling of the Skywalker Saga.
Don't forget the holiday special.
And the holiday special, yeah, I do keep forgetting about that. Like, I think that, there will be a time where Rey and Poe and Finn like go with Chewie back to Kashyyyk to celebrate Life Day. Are they all wearing like in-universe Christmas sweaters? Probably not. That's kind of the...
Well, Poe's going to be wearing a BB-8 sweater.
In the short, but in the real canon universe that's not the Lego version of that story, I doubt he would be. I would love it if he were. Star Wars needs more sweaters. But I just don't see Star Wars fans embracing a show like that. And I don't even know how Star Trek fans are embracing Lower Decks. I've heard good things about it, but there's probably still a subset of the fandom that really hates it.
Probably.
Like, I don't want to act like I'm really deep in the Star Trek fandom and say everything's cool over there and have some Star Trek people be like, oh boy, you have no idea. But yeah, I just don't see Star Wars fans accepting that as just like, oh boy, this is fun and nothing else. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon where we left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained content like audio commentaries for the films and for the Clone Wars. And this week's episode is Escape from Kadavo, if you want to check that out. We're also almost back to Mandalorian season, so that means we're going to be taking a break from Clone Wars commentaries to do commentaries on the second season of The Mandalorian. So that'll be starting in just about 2 weeks.
On to YouTube questions. Kyle Roberts asks why the Empire tried to cover up their assault on the Sandcrawler in A New Hope. It doesn't seem very on brand for them.
Basically, why would the Empire even care to cover it up? Why not just openly attack the Tusken Raiders? Would people on Tatooine even care? I think the only thing that's different about this is that the Death Star plans were involved.
Yeah.
I think that they were probably just trying to make it seem like, oh, no, we don't really care about what's going on. Nothing to see on Tatooine. No Empire here.
Yeah.
This is just local trouble between Tusken Raiders and Jawas. We're definitely not looking for super secret plans that were stolen.
Definitely not. Sorry, Hilo farted and it is awful.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Poke Wars wants to know what color Biggs's lightsaber would be if he were a Jedi.
Orange, I hope.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a color, it would just be a giant mustache.
Just hair
It's
comes sprouting out.
A glowing mustache.
I like it. But my first thought was orange. That's just, he looks the best in it, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, God, now just think of him in that cape on Tatooine with an orange lightsaber. Yeah. There he is.
Eileen Dolan asks if we'd like to see Keira Knightley play Sabe again in the Kenobi series.
That's an interesting take. And yeah, I mean, I'd be very down for that. Sabe is getting like a real renaissance lately.
Yeah.
Between Queen's Shadow, Queen's Peril. She's in the new Darth Vader comics. We know that she would be alive at that point in time. So yeah, I think that would be really cool.
I agree. I think that would be awesome. And I think the fans would love it. I don't know that Keira Knightley would be down for it. I feel like recently she said something about she didn't remember.
She forgot what she even did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was basically a background character in The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
But I'm still like, I really hope Joel Edgerton is in the Kenobi series because he's someone that was cast and like he's become a much bigger name now. So I want to see him be involved in Kenobi, and kind of the same with Keira Knightley. That would be a really cool idea. A connection back to the prequels, and like again, just having her show up more and more in these recent stories. I'm like, yes, I would very much like to see her again.
Caleb Hilscher wants to know what would have happened in the cave on Dagobah if Luke had not taken his weapons with him.
Very interesting question. So I think like that is just one of Luke's problems, that your weapons, you won't need them. He brings them anyway. It's kind of the same thing with Ben and that night at the Jedi Temple. Like, why did he even bring his lightsaber into the hut? Like, no, I fully don't believe he was like, yes, I'm going to murder my nephew right now. It was like that moment of instinct and fear as he was seeing some horrible Force vision. But why did you even bring your lightsaber in there with your sleeping nephew? Like, that was the first problem. So if he didn't bring his weapons in, I mean, I guess it would just be, there'd probably be a completely different lesson for him to learn. I think the Force was trying to teach him in that moment, like, hey, this isn't what you need to be doing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, would he have seen his own face in the Vader mask?
Or would he even have been confronted by Vader? Like, I think he would have seen a completely different vision, because the Force was trying to teach him a lesson about who he was.
Yeah.
If he was the kind of person that would listen to Yoda and not bring his weapons in, I think the Force would have taught him something else.
Interesting. Maybe he would have seen... I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe he would have seen Leia. I mean, this probably wouldn't have happened at the time, but maybe he would have seen Padme.
I wonder just what the lesson would have been. I mean, ultimately, it's kind of showing that, hey, there's darkness in you too, and if you're not careful, you can turn into Darth Vader. So I don't know if he would have had that same lesson if he didn't bring his weapons in and showed less aggression. I'm sure there, like, I don't know. That's just, it's so down to Luke's character that I think it's impossible to guess, because I think he'd be a different character. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below, or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitch.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.